Manitou Cliff Dwellings, Museum and Preserve. Dating between 800 and 1,000 years old, the Manitou Cliff Dwellings were originally located in McElmo Canyon near Mesa Verde, Colorado, and were inhabited by people who were once known as the Anasazi, but are now known as ancestral Puebloans. Mrs. Virginia McClurg moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado in 1877, where she developed a passion for the exploration, excavation, and preservation of cliff dwellings. She would later become a founding member and the Regent General of the National Colorado Cliff Dwellings Association. Prior to 1906, there was no legislation existing to protect sites of antiquity. This task fell on the shoulders of private individuals and groups that were interested enough to raise the funds on their own. Mrs. McClurg, hoping to secure the site from looters, hired William Crosby and the Manitou Cliff Dwellings Ruins Company in 1904 to essentially disassemble the ruins brick by brick and relocate them to a site more accessible to the public. Manitou Springs was chosen as it was already a well-known tourist destination, known for its mineral springs. Crosby's team began their project by mapping out the dwellings they were commissioned to relocate. This would allow them to reconstruct the site exactly as it was found. Once the process of mapping was completed, the pieces were transported by oxen over a distance of 40 miles and more than 3 days' journey to Dolores, Colorado. There they were stored in the railroad warehouses until they could be loaded onto trains. Once loaded onto the trains, the ruins were taken almost 400 miles away to Manitou Springs, Colorado. There they were reconstructed almost exactly as they were at their original site. This included having the site selected so that the buildings were rebuilt on a naturally southwest-facing cliff. This was the method utilized by the original inhabitants to make best use of the sun's natural light, also helping to regulate temperature through the hottest parts of the day. The one difference being that instead of the mud adobe mortar used by the original inhabitants, Crosby and McClurg decided on using actual cement mortar in order to better preserve the structures and protect them from the almost daily low-scale earthquakes. These earthquakes typically register at less than 1 on the Richter scale, but nonetheless have a detrimental effect on the structural integrity of the buildings over time and remain the primary environmental threat to the site. Manitou Cliff Dwellings Museum and Preserve offer several different facets to their attraction that take the individual through the evolution of the ancestral Puebloan structures. The Cave Museum exhibits the earliest forms of shelter and how day-to-day life was conducted from childhood all the way until death and burial. The Pueblo Museum offers the same insights, but from the perspective of those who lived after the ancestral Puebloans abandoned cliff dwellings and transitioned towards the pueblos that we can still see some living in today. And of course, the cornerstone of all of this is the Cliff Dwelling Preserve, where visitors are free to enter the actual dwellings that were transported to the site 114 years ago. The gift shop helps to raise funds for the museum and preserve, as does the entrance fees. Very few volunteers are utilized in the operation of the site, as it requires trained personnel in order to ensure the site and its artifacts are handled properly. In order to maintain its autonomy, the site does not receive grant money from the federal government. Public outreach and awareness is accomplished primarily through school tours. These tours usually occur for grades K through 5, but will gladly accommodate any other grade level that is interested, providing activities such as corn grinding, in which the visitors make cornmeal in the manner that the Puebloans would have, artifact handling, and an in-depth tour of the facilities helps to stoke the interest of students of all ages. Staff members also participate in community events in Manitou Springs, such as holiday parades and the like. This provides them with the opportunity to let people know who they are while giving back to the community. Because the cave dwellings are relocated, Crosby's company was able to rebuild them in a manner that helped ensure the structures could withstand the rigors of contact with thousands of visitors each year. This foresight on the part of McClurg and Crosby has allowed the museum to encourage visitors to walk inside and touch the building walls without having to worry about corrosion over time. This level of immersion provides a strong attraction for visitors. Instead of simply viewing the buildings from behind a rope, they can get a sense of what it was like almost a millennia ago. In conclusion, the fact that the museum, that was started prior to any protections existing for sites of antiquity by the federal government, has continued to function as a private organization, both educating and entertaining guests, estimated at well over 10,000 guests annually, for over a century, speaks volumes of the museum's quality and its relevance, not to mention the professionalism of the staff members both past and present. Had it not been for the vision and dedication of Mrs. McClurg and the professional expertise of Mr. Crosby, the site would have almost undoubtedly been lost to neglect and the greed of looters.